I'm so excited to be able to spend this time with you and share with you something that's been not only integrally important to me in everything that I've done, but to my family and to many people over the years. As I've shared this with others and watched them share this, I have to tell you, what you're about to hear has traveled literally around the world. So this is what I commonly call either the napkin presentation or the lady on the airplane story. But you know, my background in estate planning goes back many, many years. Worked in a firm in Los Angeles. I really loved it. I would go to probate court, believe it or not, every Friday with an attorney just to sit there and just see what happens to people's wealth in a second and watch how it goes from here to there as the government took its portion out of it, or the expenses and the costs or the misappropriation of the money and how they handled it was gone. And so I had this passion on how do we move money from one generation to the next. And after about 15 years of doing this, and then listening to the statistics globally, not just locally, but globally, that when you really think about it, 83% of all family wealth, 97% of family wealth, get my statistics mixed up, 97% of all family wealth is gone before it reaches the fourth generation. Think about the consequences of that. So if you're me, and you're thinking, well, this is a great profession that I'm in, I'm out here making a difference, and then you look at the statistics that say in 3 generations it's going to be gone, that's kind of an indictment on the industry. And that's the place that I found myself wondering, why am I doing this? What is my purpose? How can I use this to make a difference? And so much so that I almost changed professions, considered becoming an ER doctor where I can make a difference every single second. And as I thought through this process, I asked myself, what is my stewardship responsibility to my wealth? Whatever that is, to my wealth. And when does it end? And as I asked that question, different things started happening, changes started happening. I started putting things together. I started getting a light of maybe how it could work. Sharing it with others, but everybody said, well, that's too complicated. You can't make it work. And I remember distinctly a moment in the shower, a shower moment, if you will, 4 o'clock in the morning. Getting ready to fly to Atlanta. I'm in the shower, and all of a sudden this idea hits me. I jump out, and I draw this on a piece of paper. I'm excited. I get on a plane. Don't know what to do with it, but I've got the information now, and I sit down next to a lady, and we begin talking. After we're up in the air, and we start talking about it. She's telling me what she does, and how much she loves her family, and how she has a little family business with her daughters, and how they make custom jewelry, and how excited. And finally, she asked me, what is it that you do? Well, I looked around. I didn't have a piece of paper. I had nothing I could write it down on. So I picked up a napkin. And that napkin will go down in history. I wish I had it today. But I picked up a napkin, and I wrote at the top of the napkin, let me find something here. I wrote at the top of the napkin, let's assume this is the napkin right here. I wrote, I optimize wealth. Now, I left a little space there if you notice, but I optimize wealth. Now, imagine me sitting there next to you. Imagine you're sitting next to me now, and I'm showing this to you. What's your reaction to this? So she said, well, what do you mean? What is that? How do you do that? And I said, well, when you hear the word wealth, what do you think of? Now, when you hear the word wealth, what do most people think of? So I wrote a line in the napkin like this, went across like this, and she said, real estate. It just so happened that her husband managed real estate for one of the largest landowners in the United States, and that was top of mind for her. So I wrote down real estate. And then she said, well, money and stocks and bonds. And she even said like jewelry stores, jewelry. Because that's what she did. That's what she's familiar with. And I said, so what you're really talking about here are things. And she said, yes. And aren't these things, most of these things, wouldn't you call them financial things? And I wrote down financial. She said, yes, I think you're right. Well, when I think of wealth, I think of financial things. Well, are there assets? Then here comes one of the great questions. Do you possess assets or things that you value more than your money? Are there things that you possess? Is there wealth that you have? Are there assets that you possess that you value more than your money? I'm asking you. Think about it. What do you think the first thing she said? You mean like family? Like my daughters, my husband? I said, sure. So then we wrote down family. She said health. Health. And then she said beliefs. Or what we might call values. So I asked her, so what you're saying to me is that, I'm asking you, what you're saying to me is that you would trade your family. Would you trade your family for more of this? Yes or no? Now that's the question sometimes. People say, well, what do you give me? Or how about teenagers? But seriously, would you trade your family for more of this? Yes or no? Would you trade your health for more of this? Yes or no? Would you trade your beliefs for more of this? Yes or no? That being said, I know that you said no way. But at times, ask yourself, have I been doing things down here at the sacrifice of my family or the sacrifice of my health, or even at times the sacrifice of my beliefs or values? She named a few other things. She said her heritage. And she said her God-given talents. We call that unique ability. So she made a list of those things that were intrinsic to her, in her heart, if you will, those things that she valued. And so we call those core. Those become your core assets or your core wealth. So we have financial wealth and core wealth. And so then I said, are there other things? Are there other things when you look at this that you would consider to be a value that you wouldn't trade? Other things that are important to you in value. And she said, well, what about education? I said, perfect. Would you trade your education for more of this? And she says, well, in a way, we kind of do. We go to school and then we make money. But what if somebody took it all away from you and you no longer had that? So we wrote down the education. And she said, well, if you're going to include education, you're going to have to include experiences. I said, okay, just the good experiences or the bad experiences? She said, both. So good and bad. She said, I think sometimes I learn more from my bad experiences than I do from my good experiences. So I said, since you said experiences, why don't we call this box experiences? And we have all kinds of experiences. Experiences tend to determine some of the assets that we have or some of our wealth. What about reputation? How important is reputation to your wealth? What about networks? People that you know, the connections that you've made, the alliances that you've made. These are all considered to be wealth to this person. Now, that gave us 3 as we look at it there, so there is a 4th one. And the 4th one, when you really think about it, I'm going to draw a little diagram here. And I didn't. And so in this diagram, what you're looking at here are the phases of gratitude. And there's one here at the very bottom. Now in a separate video, we have explained to you the phases of gratitude. So when we look at this down here, what are we really talking about? It's interesting. Somebody once asked me, if you could describe in one word, why it is that wealth does not move from one generation to the next. I said, absolutely I can. It's gratitude. It's the lack of gratitude, the understanding of gratitude and how gratitude works, the inability of somebody to open up their arms. If they can't open up their arms, then they can't receive, nor can they give. And so it's this idea of entitlement versus empowerment. That entitlement, some people are born wealthy. They're born on a wealthy family. Some people say they're born on third base and they actually believe they hit a triple. Other people win the lottery. Some people win a big sports contract. Other people win it in different ways. Some people work very hard to get it, but then don't know how to use it. They really don't know the power of being. So you have the entitled and the empowered, and it's that mindset. And so how do we then, we look at those assets. They're assets that are contribution assets. And when it's all said and done, based upon gratitude, when it's all said and done, ask yourself this. When you leave this planet, do you want to be somebody that has created more than you consumed, or somebody that consumed more than you created? What about your children? You're talking about giving them something. Would you like them to have the attitude of somebody that consumes more than they create? Or would you like them to have the attitude of somebody that creates more than they consume? That attitude of gratitude. That to me is true wealth. That's the wealth that you're really trying to look for. So contribution is that area of your life where you can truly give forward, where you can create something that's going to outlive you. All right, so here I'm sitting on the airplane, sitting next to this lady, and it's getting down to judgment time because I know there's a question coming and I don't know exactly, I think I know how she's going to answer it, but I'm not 100% sure. So we looked at these 4 categories of assets, and I asked her, and I'll ask you, if you're looking at these 4 categories of assets, which of these 4 categories of assets would you like to transfer to your children? And maybe even to their children. Think about it. Would you like to know what she said? And she named them. That fast. All of them. All of them. I want to be able to transfer all of these to that next generation. So I want them to take advantage of our financial efforts, of the financial work that we're doing. I want them to be able to take advantage of our core and everything that we're doing there. I want them to be able to stand on our family, to honor their wealth, their health, their beliefs. I want them to be able to stand on our experiences, but create experiences of their own, to have their own education, be able to stand on our reputation, but have a reputation of their own. I want them to have the benefit of what we've done, and I certainly don't want them to be those mindsets where they feel entitled. I want them to have that empowerment mindset where they truly, truly have the mindset of giving more than they're taking. Now that's pretty exciting. And I said, wow, okay, here it comes. What if you couldn't give them all 4? What if you could only give them 3? Let's say you had to eliminate this one, this one, this one, or this one, and just give them the other 3. Which one would you eliminate? You know how long it took her to give me an answer? Faster than the first answer. In fact, she took the pen out of my hand and she went, boom. Just like that. And I said, wow, that's really interesting. So let me ask you a question. Why did you say that? And she says this. Listen carefully. She said, I know that if my children are bankrupt here, or they're bankrupt here, or they're bankrupt here, that this is going to go away. Wow. Then she said, I also know that if they're rich here, and here, and here, this will take care of itself. And I had chills run down my back. Literally chills run down my back. Because my next question was, have you ever done estate planning? And she said, yes, several times. And I said, where did you and your advisors focus? And she said, right there. All of them? All of them. But didn't we just decide that if we would focus here, here, or here, that this would take care of itself? Wow. Wow. So you look at this, what we're really talking about here is that we're in the business of optimizing true wealth. And how do you do that? How do you do that? Well, this is exactly what we're going to explore with you. So I just want to say thank you for taking this time. Feel free to look at this as many times as you want. Always interested in your comments. Onward, outward, and upward. Talk to you soon.